Do you guys agree? The Ring Magazine brings out their new top 10 heavyweight rankings. You know, so this has been recently updated. So let's jump into it. So obviously we know Tyson Fury, you know, stopped Deontay Wilder, became Ring Magazine champion. So he's got that, you know, that little gold C right next to his picture right there. So Ring Magazine WBC champ, you know, 21 knockouts, you know, 1 draw against Deontay Wilder, 30 wins. Next we have Anthony Joshua. I think most of us can agree Anthony Joshua could be #1 rankings behind obviously the champion Tyson Fury, IBF champ, WBA champ, WBO champ, only 1 loss to Andy Ruiz, 23 victories, 21 knockouts. You know, Anthony Joshua deserves to be #1 behind Tyson Fury. Controversial next. Dillian Whyte ranks above Deontay Wilder. Whether was Dillian Whyte better than Deontay Wilder, that's a debate for another video. But in terms of ranking, I can kind of see why the Ring Magazine will put Dillian Whyte above Deontay Wilder. If you look at their resumes, I'm not talking about who's knocked people out in the most devastating fashion. I'm just talking about their names on the resume. Arguably, most people think, a lot of people think that Deontay Wilder would iron out Dillian Whyte if they fought. Some people think Dillian Whyte would beat Deontay Wilder. We don't know until they actually fight. But in terms of resume, I believe Dillian Whyte has a better resume, better names on his record than Deontay Wilder. Dillian Whyte's got people like Oscar Rivas. He's got people like, obviously lost to Anthony Joshua. He's got victories over people like Joseph Parker. You know, if he beats Povetkin, he would have Povetkin on his resume. You know, he's knocked out Lucas Brown. You know, Dillian Whyte has actually got good, you know, good names on his resume. You know, he's beat Derek Chisora. Good recognized names that people, you could go on the box rec, you can check it, recognize names, recognize victories that Dillian Whyte has actually got. If you look at Deontay Wilder's victories, the most high profile victory that Deontay Wilder's had is actually Luis Ortiz. You know, he didn't actually beat Tyson Fury yet. We don't know what's going to happen in the trilogy, but his most high profile victory is actually over Luis Ortiz. You know, and one opponent I like to liken that Dillian Whyte has fought, similar to Deontay Wilder, is actually Oscar Rivas. That Dillian Whyte actually fought. He fought Oscar Rivas after Oscar Rivas beat Brian Jennings, and Deontay Wilder actually fought Luis Ortiz after he had a victory over Brian Jennings as well. So that means you basically have Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder fighting a similar kind of level opponent. Obviously, Oscar Rivas has a good amateur pedigree. Luis Ortiz obviously wasn't at the. I don't think Luis Ortiz was at the Olympics or anything like that. But Luis Ortiz has 300 and something odd amateur fights. So they both have good amateur pedigree. Luis Ortiz and Oscar Rivas. Obviously, Oscar Rivas is younger than Luis Ortiz, but both of them coming off Oscar Rivas and going on to fight Dillian Whyte. And obviously Luis Ortiz and Oscar Rivas coming off fighting their most credible opponent in Brian Jennings, then going on to fight Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas, going on to fight Deontay Wilder and Dillian Whyte. Can you arguably say that Luis Ortiz and Oscar Rivas are a similar level? You know, because obviously here they've ranked Luis Ortiz 4th. The reason why I think they've ranked Luis Ortiz 4th here is because of his performance. He's fought Deontay Wilder. His performance, especially in that first fight, I think maybe that's why they've given him 4th here, because obviously they've given Oscar Rivas 9th, but Luis Ortiz has actually fought a more notable opponent than Oscar Rivas. The most notable opponent that Oscar Rivas has fought is Dillian Whyte, and the most notable opponent that Luis Ortiz has fought is Deontay Wilder. And obviously Luis Ortiz got knocked out by Deontay Wilder, but I believe that Luis Ortiz put up a much better performance against Deontay Wilder in the first fight, despite getting knocked out, than Oscar Rivas put up against Dillian Whyte in the first fight. So Oscar Rivas' first fight against Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz's first fight against Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz was more impressive for me, even with his old age. So maybe that's why they're giving Ortiz 4, and maybe they've dropped Oscar Rivas down to 9th. I don't know. They have their way of deciding who's ranked what and what. But talking about Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder, Dillian Whyte, you know, I think Dillian Whyte's best victory was against Joseph Parker, in my opinion. Is Joseph Parker better than anyone that Deontay Wilder's beaten? You know, is Joseph Parker better than Luis Ortiz? not according to the Ring magazine. The Ring magazine believes that they, you know, Luis Ortiz is is ranked above Joseph Parker. You know, so strange way of looking at things. It's interesting to figure out why they put Dillian Whyte above, you know, above Deontay Wilder, because if you look at it, if Deontay Wilder's beating Luis Ortiz is ranked number 4, and if they say Joseph Parker's number 7 and that's Dillian Whyte's best victory, why is Dillian Whyte ranked above Deontay Wilder if Deontay Wilder's beating a better opponent in Luis Ortiz compared to Joseph Parker, according to what Ring magazine believe is the better opponent? But maybe I think that maybe they've done it based on probably resume, because for me, Dillian Whyte's resume is, you know, he's got much better names than that on his record than Deontay Wilder. You know, Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora to me is better than, you know, Gerald Washington, Arthur Spilka. You know, a lot of these guys did Deontay Wilder's ironed out. You know, washed up Burmester Stavern in the rematch. Even Derek Chisora is better than some of these guys. Well, current Derek Chisora anyway. Joseph Parker is better than the vast majority of Deontay Wilder's opponents. You know, even Joseph Parker and Oscar Rivas, you know, wins for Dillian Whyte are better than any other wins that Deontay Wilder's had, maybe apart from Luis Ortiz. You know, and Joseph Parker was a former WBO champion. So Dillian Whyte has beaten better opponents. He's got a better resume than Deontay Wilder. So that's really why I think they've ranked him number 2. Obviously, I spoke about Luis Ortiz. For me, if I had to really say, you know, looking at this ranking, I don't think Luis Ortiz should be number 4. You know, is Luis Ortiz had better wins than Andy Ruiz? Andy Ruiz that beat Anthony Joshua. How can Luis Ortiz be ranked above Andy Ruiz? You know, number 6, Alexander Povetkin. You know, he's had better victories than Luis Ortiz as well. You know, beating guys like, what's his name? He's beaten Takam, beaten David Price. You know, he's had a few good victories. Obviously, had a draw with what's his name? Michael Hunter. He's had better performances and better victories than Luis Ortiz. And Joseph Parker, former WBO champion. Obviously, Parker hasn't really fought anybody in a while. He's fought some Sean Dale Winters. They're talking about him fighting Junior Farr. He ain't really been fighting anybody since his Dillian Whyte loss. But for me, I can't put Luis Ortiz above Andy Ruiz, Alexander Povetkin, and Joseph Parker. It'd be interesting to find out their rationale for that. Looking at Michael Hunter, you know, I can agree with 8 for Hunter. Oscar Rivas, obviously, he hasn't fought anybody of note apart from Dillian Whyte, and he didn't really have a victory. Didn't look, you know, couldn't really get his wits about him to, you know, do anything serious to Dillian Whyte apart from dropping in once, and Dillian Whyte attributes that to his legs being crossed. But Oscar Rivas, you know, for now, I think 9 is all right for him. Pulev, we need to see what Pulev does with Anthony Joshua. If Pulev goes on and knocks out Anthony Joshua in their IBF, you know, mandatory, you know, I think Pulev is probably going to skyrocket up this rankings at his age. Is he 39 or 40 now? You know, guys ticking on a bit in age. But, you know, the rankings from Ring Magazine, I don't think it's so controversial. Tyson Fury's way should be, AJ's way should be. Only places I believe that are controversial, you know, some people argue one thing or the other, is between Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder. And definitely about why Luis Ortiz is ranked above Andy Ruiz, Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, Michael Hunter, Oscar Rivas, and Kubrat Pulev. So Andy Ruiz, for me, he should be above Luis Ortiz. Coming off a win against Anthony Joshua like that, maybe you could say Povetkin hasn't really fought anybody since losing to Anthony Joshua. You know, Joseph Parker's been fighting some cream puffs and puddings. Michael Hunter's still relatively unknown. Oscar Rivas lost to Dillian Whyte, relatively still unknown quantity in terms of what he can do in heavyweight division. Pulev, you know, hasn't really fought Hughie Fury, hasn't really had any high-profile fights. But Andy Ruiz beating Anthony Joshua, even though he lost, he should be above Luis Ortiz for me. You know, and arguably he could be in the top 4. He could be in the top 4 as well. But with Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, and, you know, Deontay Wilder, do you think Andy Ruiz should be, you know, ranked maybe number 2, or maybe just behind Deontay Wilder? You know, because of his victory over Anthony Joshua. Maybe it's because we lost to Anthony Joshua in the rematch or something. I don't know. But the most controversial ranking for me is Luis Ortiz in number 4, and maybe Dillian Whyte, Deontay Wilder the fanboys between each camp can debate. So drop your comments in the comment section below. What do you think about what I've said? What do you think about the Ring Magazine rankings? You know, Luis Ortiz number 4, Dillian Whyte, you know, number ahead of Deontay Wilder. Drop your comments in the comment section below. What do you think, guys? Cool.